Hello and welcome to the Hounding Harmony Dog Training Podcast, the show that helps you go from chaos to calm with your dog, one episode at a time. I'm Emily, a dog trainer and licensed veterinary technician, here to give you practical tips, real-life strategies, and the confidence to raise a well-behaved, obedient dog without the overwhelm. Let's jump in and create a calm and connected life with your dog. Welcome back to Hounding Harmony Podcast. Today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Joli. We went to college together. We have very similar training styles, and she just got a lot of great knowledge to share with us. Joli, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background in dog training?
Yeah. Hi, guys. My name is Joli. Like we said, Emily and we've known each other from kind of the start of my dog training career. I actually really kind of started getting into dog training a little bit before college. It was mostly in college, but I actually had a black lab growing up, and I did some training like sit, stay, lay down, very simple things when I was really young for 4-H, and we were really big into that. And one time when we went to the state fair, I actually saw the stock dogs training and everything. And that's when I really realized, I'm like, wow, like you can train a dog like that. Like I was just so amazed that a dog could even do that. And ever since then, I wanted a Border Collie. And I knew that living at home, I wouldn't get that opportunity because my parents were like, absolutely not. But then when I went to college, they had a stock dog team and I didn't know what that was at all. And then quickly learned that all of the people that I was hanging out with on the very first day I went to college, like Emily, she was going to join the stock dog team. And I was like, well, I might as well. And then I found out that the person helping out with the team a lot had a Border Collie. And I was like, this is like perfect. I can just get a puppy. And off to the races we went.
I forgot that detail that you had already had stock dog like on your radar.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of worked together perfect.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's actually what it was called. I was just like, wow, like you can train a dog to herd. But I had no idea they were called like stock dogs until really I got to college. And then when I heard of the stock dog team, I actually didn't even know what that really meant. But I was interested and I was like, okay, well, heck, I might as well learn some stuff. And if I need some more community and some friends, I might as well go and do that.
So you were telling us about your Border Collie then. That's Lou, of course. What do you think your relationship currently with her is like? How would you describe that?
So my relationship with her right now is kind of touch and go, I would say. With having a baby and having another one on the way, I think it's really hard right now to keep up with her energy level, but the children kind of help. So when it comes to training and everything and really working her brain, it's a little bit harder, but it is a lot easier when it comes to going on a walk because I'll take my son for a walk. So it's easy to just bring her along with me and then go from there. It's even though she's 6 years old, like there are still things that I can touch up on with training, and it kind of is a good indicator.
No, I totally get that. That's something that we've talked about before that I actually talk about on the podcast actually pretty frequently, that how they are on the leash is a really good indicator at their strengths, their weaknesses, where they're at with submission and obeying your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good meter.
Yes. So since she does really well on the leash, I actually will hook up puppies to her when I'm trying to leash train them. So then she's doing the work and not me.
That is so cool. I love it when the older dogs can really take on a role in the training. That was something we talked about with Brittany, last month's guest, and how her dog trained her current puppy without her even realizing it. It just made it so much easier.
I always think it's interesting how much an older dog just correcting them and them like another dog being part of the herd it just shows how much their experience is going to kind of, I guess how it's going to play out. When you have an older dog and you have a puppy and they are learning just manners and stuff, like that older dog teaches them so many manners that we could never train them because they're teaching in their language.
Absolutely. Can you tell me about a time where you felt stuck or overwhelmed with Lou specifically?
Yes. Okay. So I think one of the moments that I felt really stuck and overwhelmed both was when we went back into stock dog training. I think after a while, like a long break, she was I want to say 6 to 8 months old, somewhere in there, where they're kind of reaching their peak. She needed the next thing, but I didn't have the training to kind of figure out what she needed and how to help her to really get over the hump that she was having, until honestly, I just asked the people around me. I could think that I'm the best in the world, but having another person just say, hey, like, watching and try this instead, and see how this communication with your dog changes. And once we did that, once my coach kind of stepped in and say, hey, do this and this and this, that's when we started to actually go forward again. But up until I kind of figured that out and really started asking other people what their experience was, or if they've had this problem before, that's when I was just so frustrated and overwhelmed. So it's like, I don't know how to do this. I'm so overwhelmed that you could tell the dog and I just weren't communicating at all. And we were both stressed out. And then when we were both stressed out, we just didn't get anything done. And we had to cut a lot of sessions short because when we're both stressed, we're not getting anything done. And so
I love that. That's like the whole reason that I want to have people like you on the podcast, is because it's so important to broaden your knowledge and understanding of other training methods and other ideas so that you can have a more fully fledged method, because all of the dogs that you encounter, they all have a different way of communicating with you. It's all kind of the same, but it's going to be a little bit different for each dog. So it's really cool that you were able to figure that out early on and be like, I need help. Please, someone, give me this.
I definitely learned that. And then I learned it again when I got another dog, because I was going to train a dog and possibly give him back to the school. And that didn't necessarily work out because I knew that I had a gift in training these Border Collies, at least getting some groundwork on them and teaching them, just basic stuff, laying down, stopping when I tell you to stop, just very respectful stuff. And then watching how I had to respond and communicate differently with another dog, because not all teaching styles are going to work with the same dog. And so when I was with Hudson and like training him, he trained a completely different way. He was honestly a lot easier to train. And I think that helps because I had more knowledge about what I was doing. But once I had that knowledge, I learned like I didn't have to use as much pressure at first. And I didn't have to do a lot of the things that I did with Lou. I didn't have as many mistakes. And that turned out for him to just be a well-rounded dog, puppy, whoever you want to call him at that time. Compared to Lou, where we were on the learning train together, trying to figure everything out and limp our way through it until, we were both understanding and communicating the right way.
So would you say that you got to a more advanced point in training with Hudson in a shorter amount of time than you did with Lou?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think by the time Lou was a year, Hudson being 5-6 months old, he probably knew everything that Lou was doing at a year. And so it just fast-tracked the training by so much. And I think it also helped that I had Lou around. When training, I would do training with two of them at the same time. So Lou, knowing all of her commands, I would have Hudson do the same exact commands that she was doing, so he could actually do like a follow the leader. He saw that, oh, I told you to stay. He kind of figured out that he would watch her. He was very driven in like wanting to just make me happy, because obviously dogs are very driven in different ways. Sometimes they like toys, sometimes they like food, sometimes they just like praise. And he was definitely a praise dog. He didn't really care for the food that much, didn't really care for the toys that much, but he wanted me to tell him that he was doing such a good job. Just being able to figure out his communication, like that is really what was the biggest thing for us for training. And I didn't really realize that much with Lulu. When I figured out the communication, it's going to go a lot smoother for everybody.
Yeah, that's good. Would you say that you experienced a similar series of events with Silo, even your third Border Collie?
Yes. Oh, actually, I trained Silo first and then it was Hudson.
Oh, did you really? I get them mixed up.
I did too, if I'm going to be honest. Okay, let's backtrack then. Okay, so Hudson was the last puppy that I trained. But Silo was the second. And Silo, I think I learned more from him than I did Hudson for sure, and a lot of other dogs that I've just worked with. Not necessarily Lou, because she was the very first. We did everything together. With Silo, he was very, very hard-headed. Very hard-headed. And so once I figured out how to communicate with him, he was a lot more driven in the way he wanted to work. He wanted to go for the toy, and I had to keep his brain busy. And if I didn't keep his brain busy, you see it every single day in a normal setting, your dog is going to eat your stuff, or they're going to go just be crazy in ways that you never thought a dog would be. And, working his brain for an hour, working their brain is going to be a lot more mentally stimulating and tiring than just having them go on a run or a walk for an hour at a time. Once I learned how to work his brain in the way he needed it to be worked, that's when my learning also upped, and just the progress of us working together was a lot better.
That makes sense. It's also really good to talk to you about having these high energy working dogs in a town perspective. Like, you don't live in the country, you live in a neighborhood with a high energy, high working dog.
I mean, when I had Silo, I was living in an apartment, so I had to learn ways to help mentally stimulate their brains both inside the apartment and outside the apartment, because when it snows, it's really hard to go outside. So you have to really figure out how to play these little games with them and keep them so they're entertained and they're constantly working instead of, being crazy and everything. I think once you find the skills that you need outside, so mostly talking about stock dogs, I knew that I wanted to work Silo. He was the main reason that I had got him, was to work stock. And then I ended up in an apartment and everything. But teaching him how to do the basics of going certain directions, or throwing a toy and making him walk to the toy instead of just run for it every single time and get it and bring it back. Like, instead of that, having him walk up to it and then come back to me, and then walk up to it and then come back to me, and then maybe go a direction and then come back, and then being able to grab the toy and like knowing when to bite when I tell him to bite. All of those things are just the groundwork, the fundamentals that you can start doing if you ever want to train a stock dog. And it also helps them train their brain. So even if I wasn't going to be doing stock dog with him, that puts a really good foundation on just keeping his brain busy.
I love those examples. Those are so creative. I know that this wasn't on the interview question list, but do you have any of those like indoor games that you used to play with them at the top of your mind that you'd like to share?
As a puppy, especially doing crate training, one of my most favorite things to do when I get a puppy in crate training is actually training them with food in their kennel. So first thing I do is, it kind of goes in stages. If they're really scared of their crate, I'll just throw some food in there, let them go in the crate, grab the food, and then come back out. That's fine. And then you move it up, and then you move it up, and then you move it up. But I don't have a lot of money to do a lot of stuff, so I had to kind of get creative with how I was working with things. So I would teach them little games like touch, where you put your hand out and they have to touch it, their nose to your hand. Or one of my more favorite games that I did with Hudson a lot was, I would give him a task. I wouldn't tell him what the task was though, but I would get to the point where he was figuring out what I wanted just by reading my language and me reading his language. So for example, I would get his food bowl out, and the task would be, he has to put his foot on top of the bowl. So there's obviously a lot of different steps that you have to take in order for that to actually happen. So first thing he's going to do is he's going to look at the bowl. Great. Give him a treat. Then he might touch it with his nose. Great. Give him a treat. He does that again. If I don't give him a treat, then he's going to try to figure out what it is that he needs to do in order to get the treat. And so once he figures out that, touching it is good, then he starts putting his foot on there. He's trying to do everything that he can. And that's how you really start to get their brain going. Like, this is the game. This is what the task I have to do. This is what I have to figure out. And that teaches them how to be independent, but also look at you for guidance in that same way. So I just use very basic stuff. I used bowls. I used the leashes. I used my hand. I used the crate, a stick, just really stuff that I would find around. They don't need a lot. Don't need to go and grab the most expensive thing in the store. Just simple things around the house is going to work great for them.
Yeah, that's so practical. That's so good. Something that we do for our dogs is we play hide and seek with them, and I'll hide a toy, and I had to, because I have a bulldog, I had to help him figure this out. But now I'll tell him to go stay in a room, and when I call him out, immediately he's like, where'd it go?
Yeah. I have actually done that too, except for with the toy. Sometimes I just hide myself. Then they have to use their nose and find me, or, whatever it is. And I'll kind of use like a little, like, I'll squawk or something. And then they're like, oh, shoot. Like, she's around the corner, or she's talking on the phone, or whatever it is.
So I didn't read this in a study or anything, so I can't attest to how completely accurate it is. But I saw somewhere that said 15 minutes of sniffing or like sniff work for a dog is equivalent to like an hour of running.
I haven't necessarily heard that, but I totally believe it, because doing those little mental games, me doing 15 minutes of mental work is equivalent to an hour of them running. And watch a dog go from completely calm, not panting at all, to staying inside in the air conditioning, whatever, doing mental stimulation, to them just start panting because they are working their brain so hard that it's really is like physical exertion to them. They sleep so much better too, I found.
Yeah, I believe that. It makes the overnight crate training a little bit easier when they're completely worn out.
Yeah, you do a little night lesson, 15, 20 minutes, they're out for the whole night. Great.
That is something I wish more people knew, was that they don't have to use the excuse that they didn't take their dog out on a run that day. Like, you can literally get their energy out, their brain working in your 2-bedroom apartment or whatever you're dealing with, but you just have got to be creative, got to have the right mindset and patience. I talk a lot about harmony with your dog. I'm going to give you my definition of harmony so it's a little less ambiguous. Harmony is when you and your dog understand each other, the expectations are clear, there's more trust than tension, and you can handle real life moments, whether that's out on a walk or at home, with calm confidence. So I'm going to follow that definition up with this question. What was the hardest part of building harmony with your dog?
I think that the hardest part of building harmony with my dog was when we wouldn't be getting anywhere, and then there was frustrations on both of our parts. And it sounds crazy because I'm talking about a dog, but it's so true. If your dog and yourself are not trusting each other, especially when it comes to working cattle, working sheep, and you're just not working together, it's so frustrating for both of you. So once you have that trust there, I think you're going to go so much further than you could anywhere else.
How do you stay consistent when things are feeling hard or slow with that progress? What was pushing you to keep going?
Knowing that there was going to be another side of it, knowing that there was going to be a breakthrough was going to be the best part.
Now we're going to move into, we kind of talked about challenges. Now I want to talk about things that really work for you. Is there one practical thing that you can think of that started to make a huge difference for you and your dog? Just like a practical tool that someone else could take and apply to their situation as well.
I think the biggest thing that I would take and train every single dog that I have is the crate training, and helping them have a home in their crate. Like them feeling like that's home, like that's theirs, that's their place, that's their safe place. I would do that every single time, every single dog that I have, every puppy. I think that once they have a place and a spot in their home, then they're going to feel a lot more confident, especially if they're scared of something like fireworks or loud noises.
I agree. It helps them be able to reduce tension within their own power. And honestly, every person that I've asked that type of question to, so you're the third interview, they have all said that kennel training is just so important. And I mean, obviously, I completely agree, but it's crazy to me how many people don't kennel train their dog.
I honestly don't understand that. What did you do when they were a puppy? I guess that's one of my biggest tools when I'm training a puppy is using the crate. They don't want to go to the bathroom where their home is. If that's where they're sleeping, they don't want to, for the most part, very clean animals,
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to pee and poop in the same place that they're sleeping. And that just makes it so much easier for them to go straight outside. Like, that's the biggest tool you can use for potty training, for having a place when there's a bunch of people over, when you leave the house, or even if you're gone for an hour. For myself, I would much rather know that my dog is safe inside in a kennel rather than outside, possibly getting into the trash, possibly eating something that it wasn't supposed to eat, and having an emergency vet run later.
When I started to shift my mindset from I'm imprisoning them in this kennel because I'm not home, like it's I'm doing this to them. No, I'm actually protecting them. I'm providing a safe place for them, and they have much less anxiety because they know exactly what is expected of them when they're in that space. How do you balance your real life, so full-time job, your mom, with training or being present with your dog?
So like I said, is kind of hard, especially when it's a rainy day and I have a 2-year-old that's mad about everything that's going on. And especially if I'm alone in the house at the time, I would say that on the nice days, it's a lot easier because I'm able to take her out on a walk or I'm able to do things. But I have found that the shift between me and her relationship is kind of shifting to my son and her, which is super cool because at first she did not like children at all. She went for him. She kind of snapped at him a little bit at the very beginning, and now they're the best of friends. You know, they run around the table together, and my son plays ball with her. And so watching that relationship form and kind of blossom into what it is now, it's very sweet. It's very endearing to watch that. But she probably, she is in the kennel when we are home, when we're not home. And so she's in the kennel while I'm full-time working. And then we let her out and we play with as much as we can in the yard with her. And then, it's nighttime back in her kennel. I would much rather her do that than her getting into the trash or getting into medications or something like that. There was a bottle of some fish oils, and those are safe for dogs. They're good for their coat in moderation. And she just got that bottle down somehow. I think the cat might have helped her out, and she went to town. And after that, I said, I'm sorry, but from now on, you're staying in the kennel until I know that you're safe. I know that you're okay.
I like how you keep mentioning that it's not just a relationship between you and Lou, but you're incorporating your son into it so that it's like a group activity, which is good because then you're not only training Lou how to interact with the world, but you're training Miles how to interact with Lou.
Yes. And it was kind of hard at first for Miles because he was, they're a little grabby at first, and she didn't like to be grabbed, especially on her butt. And he can do whatever, he wants to her. And she'll just sit there, look at him like, okay, like you're my buddy. Like, okay, can you let me outside now? Or take this ball or take this toy. And he's just, they're just really good friends, which is good.
I think it is one of the more beautiful things in life is watching your dog that you have such a strong connection with bond with your kid. It's just so sweet to see that develop.
Yeah, because, at first she was my heart dog. She was the dog that I did everything with. She went through breakups in college and moving home and moving to another place and then moving another place and then having a baby. Like, she has done life with me. And so watching her form her own little relationship with this extra life that we created has been pretty cool to watch that.
If you could give one piece of advice to a struggling dog owner, what would it be?
You have to do your research if you're wanting to get, Border Collie or like a German Shepherd or a Malinois. Like, it really just depends on the breed. And some people, they get a dog and they're like, oh, these are great family dogs, but they don't meet the parents. And sometimes you really got to meet the parents before you figure out, oh, this is the kind of dog that I'm getting.
Yeah, absolutely. My Australian Shepherd can open some doors depending on the door handle. My Bulldog could never dream of that. So having a smart dog is really fun, but it also comes with a lot of other side effects like that.
Yes, I have definitely found that with some breeds, you have to have a lot more patience. You're going to have to do a lot more repetition with things. You're going to have to probably do things a lot more different than you would with a dog that is naturally super, super intelligent. In your case, you have an Australian Shepherd, very smart, and you have a Bulldog. So you're going to have to train up a little bit different for each one of them. So training techniques, so you're going to have to really dig deep and find what works best because it can be done. There are people out there, it can be done, but you do have to put in the work, and it might take a little bit of extra work in order to do it.
So that answer kind of leads into our last question, but I want to open up this question as like a soapbox for you to stand on. Is there anything that you wish more dog owners understood?
There's so many things. I think the biggest thing that I want people to know is that you can teach your dog basic manners and you don't have to have a fully trained dog to do it. You can teach them to not jump up on people. You can teach them not to bite. You can teach them not to pull on the leash. You can teach them to be a good citizen without having to go to all of these huge major training things. And it really is it just takes a little bit of effort on your part. But I think that if you start training them early on, it's going to go way further than anything else when they get older. So that's my biggest thing, I would say, is that you need to teach your dog manners. When you go to the vet, you don't want your dog jumping on top of every single person. Your dog might be the nicest dog in the world, but if they're jumping, if they're just kind of mouthing at you just a little bit, like those are basic manners that you should be teaching your dog not to do, or how to shift that behavior so it's a healthy behavior. And I think that is just so, so important. I used to be a veterinary technician, and seeing the amount of dogs that would come in and just have absolutely no manner at all. Sometimes people just don't care. You know, I get it. It's your life. But at the same time, why wouldn't you want to just take your dog on a walk and just be able to just leave the house and have a nice walk where you're not being pulled on the ground because they're pulling so hard? You know, there's simple tricks, there's simple tips that you can take and learn, and you just have to apply it and go for it. That would be my biggest thing. Just basic manners.
Yeah, it's okay to have higher expectations for your dog.
Yes.
Something really quick that I would love for you to expand on, because I know how I would say it in my words, but I just know that there's an owner listening to this and they're like, okay, you're telling me that I need to teach them not to do all this bad behavior, but how do I do it? Do you have a system, or how would you explain that to them?
Yeah, so I would say depending on what it is, it all responds and depends on pressure. If you have a dog that is fighting and they're a really smart dog, I think the first thing that you can do is you can start really easy. Say no or growl at your dog. Use a language that they understand, and you can give them a toy. But you know what? Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you have to put a little bit more pressure, and you have to growl and maybe knock them off their feet a little bit. So sometimes you have to take a scruff and put them on the ground. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more pressure than that. And it really just depends on the dog, depends on what you're working with. Maybe another thing would be like when you're working on a leash, doing pressure and release, letting your dog figure out that if I'm pulling you this way, you need to come with me.
So basically what you're saying is when you see undesirable behavior, to take action to correct it. And once they begin to correct it, you release the pressure that you applied, whether that's with praise or simply removing the negative consequence.
Yes.
It's somehow a complex theory, but it's so simple. It really is. It's cause and effect.
Yeah. I didn't realize how much I didn't even know that was a thing, the pressure and release, until, Kelly Pop, our old stock dog coach, until he was telling me that it's the same thing as training colts and horses, and the dogs are the same, and that there's pressure and there's relief. There's a bigger presence and there's a lot less presence. Being able to see examples of that, like when we were training dogs, like I said, Lou was a really soft dog, so I couldn't use a flag on her. If I, used the flag to sweep her out, she would almost just quit on me and just try to leave the arena. Whereas if I used like a sturdy stick or something that wasn't so much like in your face trying to correct, she would work just fine and she would just do great. So like I said, it just depends on the dog, but depending on the pressure, could be noise. It could be just the presence, like stomping up, like and walking towards the dog, like that is pressure. Turning away, that can take off pressure, and it can also put more pressure on. It really depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, and you have to like start low and build the pressure as you see fit. And a lot of the things that you are saying, it may sound to listeners that it's like harsh or animalistic. That's because you're really good at speaking on their level. You know how to speak dog to them. I think that's something important that people forget, is that though parenting and dog training has many similarities, they speak different languages. And telling your child no is going to sound different than telling your dog no.
Yep. I think one of the biggest things that I go back on is, so since I growl at my dog, if she needs a correction, I will growl at her and she knows exactly what I'm saying. Now, you can teach them no, that's totally fine. But when I growl at my dog, that's exactly what her mom would do. And so if her mom is growling at her, I mean, if you see a mom correct a puppy, sometimes it can be really harsh. And sometimes just that noise is enough to just get their attention. Like, oh, I need to start acting right again. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I wasn't doing it. I got growled at. I got corrected. And now I'm going to be better. It's going to be on my way.
And again, it depends on the dog, because I know me and my Aussie, we can talk like that. If I try to talk like that to my bulldog, he is such a potato. I swear he doesn't actually know. I don't think he knows he's a dog half the time. So it doesn't work for me to communicate the same way that I do with my Aussie, but it's all about just pivoting and learning how to work with your specific animal. That was something else I really liked when we were talking about your Border Collies, was that they are the exact same breed. Sure, they have different bloodlines, but each of your Border Collies had such an entirely different personality between the three.
Yeah, no, they really did. I was pretty impressed, because I was expecting that they would just be like Lou, and though they were all super smart, they definitely had to be communicated to differently.
Well, that is all of the questions I have for you today. If I'm going to just let you have one more chance, if there's anything that you feel like you need to wrap up, any loose ends you want to tie up, is there anything, last words that you would like to say to listeners?
I think that if you are listening to this, that there's so many ways that you can connect with your dog, and just reaching out to a friend or somebody who kind of knows what's being communicated with your dog and asking their advice and taking it can be so, so important. It's okay to take advice from somebody. Good luck to everybody out there. If you're wanting to train anything, Emily's very, very good at training and communicating with her animals. And also, thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was a joy. I thought I would I thought this would be much harder, interviewing, but it's so much fun. I'm loving having these conversations, and thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, away from your family, from your dog, to have this conversation with us. Thank you so much for tuning into Hounding Harmony Dog Training. If you found this episode helpful, it would mean the world to me if you'd follow the show and leave a quick review. This helps other dog owners find the support that they need too. For more tips, training help, and encouragement, follow me on TikTok and Instagram at HH_dog training, or you can check out the resources in the show notes. Until next time, keep hounding that harmony.